for me, the time we were building significant amounts of homes, which is 400,000 a year, we were matching the amount of private homes with social homes. And you can see with the amount of temporary accommodation that demand that we've got throughout the country, and it's very acute in London, that's the area that needs the attention. The building safety regulations are there for a reason. And I think if they're planned in from the outset and all the work is done at an early stage, it makes life a lot easier. So I say don't fight the system, work with the system. I believe that we could add another 25 or 50% to the amount of house building.
Given enough grant.
Given enough grant.
Hello, I'm Toby Fox from 1.5 Million New Homes, the local government challenge, sponsored by Redloft and Mount Anvil. So each month we're visiting a different council to find out what works and what needs to change to get more homes built, with the aim of getting to that 1.5 million new homes target. No prizes for guessing where we are this month. We're in the London Borough of Wembley. Brent.
Hello, who are you and where are we?
Hi, I'm Gerry Ansell. I'm the Director of Inclusive Regeneration and Climate Action, and we're here in Wembley Park. And so we're actually at the Civic Centre and in the heart of where we have the National Stadium behind us and the major regeneration of Wembley Park.
Now this is a really singular place. It's not like any other place we've been so far. What is it about this place that you consider to be successful?
I think for me it's the delivery. It's got a long history behind it. It took some time to get here, way before I was even here. But and I've lived here myself, and I find it to be a very successful, vibrant place. It brings in a lot of people around the stadium and the events that happen, but it's also a community. And I've seen that in the time that I've worked here. I've seen that community change.
How do you define that? Like, what's the difference between sort of people coming in and out and visitors and so on, and a community?
Well, I think because it's an event, we've got huge event spaces here. There's a throughput of people. It's a workplace as well. But you've also got people that live here, that have their homes here. And as I said, I lived here myself, and it does have a sense of place. And certainly for me, living here with the shops and the facilities that exist around here and the park that's just up the way there, it creates a place that people want to be.
And how, as a council, how have you made that happen? What's your contribution been to that success?
I think going way back, it was originally a master plan. So there were ideas around doing something with the place. The other big factor was the land ownership. So the sort of big player here is Quintain. They brought up a lot of land, and that enabled a lot of things to happen. And obviously, as a council, we own land as well, and we were able to facilitate things happening. So that, I think, was a key part in bringing things together and giving the confidence for things to move forward.
And what were the other ingredients for the success of Wembley Park?
Well, I think the key thing is placemaking, and I think it obviously goes back to the master plan, having a sensible plan in place and having that structure, and obviously delivery through getting planning applications through at various stages, the overall strategic plan for the place, and as those proposals have come forward, engaging with the community.
And what about the nature of the relationship between you and the development partner? Because this is a scheme that's gone over 20 years now, and it's got some way to go. How do you build a relationship? How do you sustain a relationship through all the changes that the world has been through, and as a local authority you've been through in that time?
I think building trusts. I mean, the relationship building, I think, with any of our large partners is around meeting regularly, understanding, helping to guide them through the process. And I think, with Quintain, for example, here, they actually have a part of the building on the estate. We meet them on a regular basis to talk through emerging proposals and issues that crop up. And likewise, they learn from us in terms of what's happening with planning and what's happening with construction overall.
And what do you say to the accusation that might be levelled at you for those sorts of meetings, that all this is happening behind closed doors and it's all, jobs for the boys and underhand deals and so on?
Well, I think my position is that we have to talk. If we don't talk to each other, I mean, we talk to the community, we have partnerships with community organisations, local businesses and so on. And one of the things we always say to developers, whether it's at pre-app meetings, is go and talk to the community. Tell us about your community engagement. And that happens way before development, you know, let's say in the concept stage. And obviously everything will go to planning committees, so decisions are made in the public domain. So it is important. We can't move forward unless the community come with us.
So Gerry, you've talked about delivering 23,000 homes in Brent alone, but you could do even more. There could be even more homes built. What needs to change to get more homes built?
I think my perception of this is very much around the funding. You'll probably hear that many times. I think that really needs to focus on social housing. I think that's a part of the market that's been neglected for decades. And when that happens, I think that we will truly see a significant increase in house building. I think at the moment, the private sector is able to sustain a certain amount. I think it's actually done extraordinarily well. But it does feel to me that that's an area that needs to change, and it does need funding, and it needs a mechanism to finance it properly.
What's the level of gap? What do you anticipate? What do you estimate the missing social homes contribution to be? How many homes could we have built that we haven't built?
That's very difficult to say, because I think that needs...
It's probably a stupid question. You can answer a better question.
Yeah, I think in terms of the gap, I mean, we have had, say, the GLA, and we've had Homes England provide funding, but it feels to me we've had... I mean, I remember in 2004 we had the Barker Review about increasing housing supply, and we've had a refresh of that recently, and it's still the same issue. And it feels to me the time we were building significant amounts of homes, which is 400,000 a year, we were matching the amount of private homes with social homes. And you can see with the amount of temporary accommodation, that demand that we've got throughout the country, and it's very acute in London, that's the area that needs the attention. If we can crack that, I think that will significantly improve things.
In my mind, that means direct delivery by the public sector. Is that too simplistic a view?
I think it's probably multi-level, because we do have housing associations.
Yep.
I think direct delivery is an area that we could do better at. We're already doing it, but I can say that we've got a handful of schemes with planning permission that we can't deliver because of funding, and I think that's a crucial area that needs attention.
What's the nature of the funding that's missing in those examples?
In those examples, I think the immediate thing is the funding for making up the viability gap, which is money that we would receive from the GLA. They have a limit to what they can do. So it feels like there needs to be a more fundamental review of that. It can't be just the GLA, it's a nationwide thing.
And this is about how much does it cost to just build a home?
How much does it cost to build a home, exactly? And I think what we've experienced in the last few years is an increase in build cost inflation. Yeah. So we've also seen an increase in the regulation through the fire safety regulations. We've seen a massive change in the industry. It hasn't quite settled yet, and that needs to settle. I believe that confidence will come back, but there's still a funding gap.
What else needs to change, Gerry?
Well, for me, I think it's around three key areas. And so I think it's around community, economics and regulation. So I think with community, it's about bringing people along. That's the local people, local businesses, elected members. I think those all need to work in concert. Because I think if you leave people behind and out of the process, then they feel things are being done to them, and they can frustrate the process. But if they can see benefits from regeneration, I think that really does help. I think in terms of the economics, I've mentioned funding, investment and infrastructure, I think are very key to that. So attracting investment to an area. I mean, last week I was at UK Reef. We're trying to basically show what the investment potential is for the area.
This is the property conference in Leeds in May. Yeah.
And we're trying to show that there are benefits to everybody to growth, but it needs to be done in a sustainable way. And I think the economics, obviously, the economic situation changes over time, but I think we need to look at a way of making it more stable, particularly in terms of the finance side of things. And the final thing I think is regulation. I say that, I think we have got some good regulations in this country, and a lot of that is around trying to facilitate development, but also to do it in a way that benefits the community and also does not unduly harm the environment. I think that's important, but it does feel like the process needs to be more driven around getting those outcomes, because we often see across the country too many schemes that don't get to that. Yes, we can approve this scheme, and I think I think we've done very well in Brent in terms of we do actually approve all of our applications for major applications, because they will always have a pre-application with them. They will be negotiated over a period of time, and there's a lot of careful work done on that also with the community.
So that by the time it gets to approval or disapproval, you already are confident that it's compliant, that the developer is doing what you've asked, that it's contributing to the community.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we get to a position where we're comfortable with the development that's come forward. Obviously, we won't push something forward that we don't think is acceptable.
Yeah.
We'll keep talking and try and get to a situation where we can get to an approval. Sometimes that's not possible, but that we genuinely get to a position where I think there's a mutual agreement on that.
So it feels like, so in development in house building, there seem to be a number of like really particularly knotty problems, and one of them is this issue of regulation, because, like you say, the regulation is good, well intended, and you would support those intentions. We don't want buildings that catch fire. We don't want developments like Wembley Park that are gated and cut off from their community and don't provide local amenity. We don't want the bad things to happen, but in ensuring that the bad things don't happen, we're stopping the good things from happening. So how do you see that balance going forward? What would you like to see change?
Well, I think to me, that is the point, that we need to be proactive about investment and getting the developments to happen. That we need the areas where we've got areas that have got deprivation that need regeneration. There is a focus on trying to get those things done. That's about community involvement. It's about investment. It's about local members as well. It's getting all those things aligned. And I don't think it's necessarily the regulation that's getting in the way. I think, to me, it's about that positive, proactive attitude.
Okay, so you don't see regulation as a barrier to delivering the homes that we need?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, it can be, but it depends how it's dealt with. And I think local authorities have a key role to play in that. And it's how you use that regulation to support development, because, as you say, the building safety regulations are there for a reason. And I think if they're planned in from the outset and all the work is done at an early stage, it makes life a lot easier. So I say, don't fight the system, work with the system.
And maybe make the system better, so resource the building safety regulator a bit better, perhaps.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I know that will take a bit of time, and it has been incredibly frustrating for us and for developers in getting movement on developments that have got planning permission that are going through the construction stage. And it is important that that is resolved very quickly.
Because they get to a particular stage of the process and they seem to stop for up to 18 months, we're hearing, because the regulator won't approve going to the next stage.
Yes, that's my understanding. I do feel that over time that will settle. And I do feel that because the industry has changed quite significantly, it's very important that developers and their their professional agents, particularly on the fire safety aspects, really work hard in those early stages to make it easy to get that approval. So I'm not saying it's all the building safety regulator. There's been a very strong cultural change in the industry, and I think that needs to settle and work its way through.
Right. The final question, Gerry. Can we get 1.5 million new homes built, and can we get them built in this Parliament?
So it is very challenging, there's no doubt about that. I believe that we can. Okay. I believe that it's absolutely possible, but it relies on everything lining up. So it does rely on securing the funding. It does rely on things like, I mean, we've talked about this, the government has talked about grey belts and new towns. That needs to come forward. For me, I would like to see a lot more social housing being built. And I think that infrastructure provision being planned in and delivered is also crucial. But it is a tall order. I believe it can be done, but it will be very, very difficult.
And if one thing were to change tomorrow to make it easier, what would you most like that thing to be?
I would like to see a significant increase in social housing funding to enable sites that have planning permission that are available to be unlocked and delivered.
How much is that increase? How much social homes funding?
I couldn't talk on the numbers of social housing funding, but I believe that we could add another 25 or 50% to the amount of house building.
Given enough grant. Gerry, you talked about strong political leadership being important and the relationship with your politicians as an officer being important to delivering new homes. The government at the moment is talking about reducing the political influence over development and taking some schemes away from planning committee. What are your reflections on all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I know that's a challenge in the process, but in my own experience with planning committee, and I think I've seen that change in the 6 years I've been at Brent, that the planning committee is a forum, I feel, where it can give confidence to the process because the decisions are made in public. And I think if the planning committee, at the start of our planning committee, the chair sets the context in terms of what the local plan is trying to achieve. And if it's clear that the planning committee are seeking to implement that local plan and deliver growth, and everybody understands that position, that really does help. I think also, as it's a public forum and it gives the opportunity for people to air their concerns and have those concerns discussed and debated in public, I think that's actually very important.
Yeah. What would you do about the planning committees that aren't so effective?
Well, I think there are things being done about planning committees which are not playing their part in terms of delivering, because I think the local plan plays a part in that, and I think it needs to be clear to members what their role is as a planning committee. And I think there's training required. I mean, we train members. We have a training session every year. And every time we got a new member, they go through a training process. So they understand what the rules are and they understand what their local plan is seeking to deliver. It's their plan after all. Because I think as members, they have a role as a ward member, but as a planning committee, you've got a role in terms of that committee meeting and its terms of reference. So I think it's important that members do understand that, and that there is an understanding of the nationwide need to increase the amount of housing. It is affecting people's lives, it's affecting affordability, and I think that understanding is vital. So it's not all about people that are objecting, it's about the whole community and ensuring that the committee represents everything that's needed within that area.
Gerry Ansell, thank you very much for your contribution to 1.5 million new homes.
And that's it for another episode of 1.5 Million New Homes, the Local Government Challenge, sponsored by Redloft and Mount Anville. We're going to be back in a few days with more from Brent. But until then, if you could hit like and subscribe, we'd be really grateful. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching.